Hello, and welcome back to A Real Horror Show. So today I've got a very special and extremely exciting video for you guys. As today we're going to be unboxing and taking a look at one of the most anticipated horror collectibles in the past couple of years. It's been a very long time coming, but it's finally here. Inside this box is Trick or Treat Studios' 1/6 scale figure of Dr Loomis as he appeared in John Carpenter's 1978 classic, Halloween. It's safe to say that this is one of those collectibles that the entire horror community has been looking forward to for quite a long time now. People have been talking about this guy since he was first announced almost 2 years ago, and now the wait is finally over. Just before I get to the unboxing, I just want to say if you're new here to the channel, please consider subscribing. If you're an all-around horror fan and you love all things nerdy, this is certainly the place for you. Also, don't forget to leave a like on the video and drop a comment down below, as it helps me out greatly and is always massively appreciated. Now without further ado, let's get to it. First thing I've got to say is Trick or Treat Studios, wonderful job of making sure that this guy is safely packaged. And we don't need that. Okay guys, so I'm just going to go and take this plastic off and then we'll get a better look at the box. Okay guys, so here is the box. And first things first, I'm sorry if there's any glare or reflection coming through from my ring light onto the camera, but it is a very high glossy box, so there might be some of that. The first thing I've got to say is I'm actually surprised at how thin the box is. For some reason I just thought that this box was going to be a lot wider. It actually reminds me quite a lot of the old school Sideshow collectible 6 scale figures from way back in the day. And also this is the first 1/6 scale figure that I've bought from Trick or Treat Studios, so I've never actually seen one of these in person up close. But yeah, just to take a closer look at the box, as you can see on the front of the packaging we get that iconic Bob Gleason Halloween artwork with the pumpkin holding the knife, and this is without a doubt one of the most iconic images in horror movie history, in my humble opinion. And of course we have Halloween at the top and then the night he came home, as well as the Trick or Treat Studios logo in the corner, and of course right at the bottom it says 1/6 scale Dr Loomis figure. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that the Michael Myers 6 scale figure has the exact same front packaging, and yeah, it's pretty much what you'd expect it to be. It's pretty simple, but it looks really nice. Also in the top corner there's a funny little reminder that this is not a toy and it is an adult collectible. On the side of the box we get the Halloween logo, the Trick or Treat Studios logo, and once again it tells us that this is the 1/6 scale Dr Loomis figure. But for me personally, I think the best aspect of this box is the design on the back, and as you can see here we get this monochrome image of Dr Loomis himself, as portrayed of course by the acting legend that is Donald Pleasence. And I really like the design of the back of this box. I think it looks very sleek, very classy. It's a great shot of Dr Loomis and I love the whole monochrome thing that they've got going on with it. And overall I think the packaging design here is quite nice. And something else about this packaging that is once again very reminiscent of the classic Sideshow collectibles stuff is that this box has the open flap window design, and what I think is really nice about this is that it's actually magnetized, where I assumed it'd just be the classic little Velcro thing like the NECA Ultimate figures for example. So that's quite a nice surprise. But anyway, let's open up this window and take our very first look at the Trick or Treat Studios 1/6 scale Dr Loomis figure. I've got to say right off the bat, this guy looks really good. The inside of the window flap greets us with another monochrome shot of Dr Loomis, this time standing at the top of the stairs in what I believe is the Doyle house, presumably aiming his gun at none other than Michael Myers in the finale of the film. Above we get one of Dr Loomis's classic quotes, "Death has come to your little town, sheriff. Now you can either ignore it or you can help me to stop it." That is a really nice touch right there. I like how death is in red, as it just gives it that extra little bit of style. And it's worth noting as well, that's probably my favourite quote from Dr Loomis, so it's very cool that that's on the inside of the window flap. Of course, on the other side we have the figure itself, and my first impressions are really good. As you can see from the figure being inside the window, it's clear that he doesn't come with much in terms of accessories, but that's something that we'll get to in just a minute. Now I guess it's time that I take this guy out and we give him the full review. As you guys know, I don't really unbox any of my action figures. It's only the 6 scale figures and above, as in the high-end collectibles, premium statues, that kind of thing. They're the only things that I actually unbox in my collection, because for one, they're so expensive, and they are very much made to be display pieces. But anyway, my point is, and this is going to sound kind of strange, it's very rare that I get to experience that new fresh figure smell. If you're a collector, you know what I'm talking about. I don't know why I struggled so much to take that off. It's so exciting to finally be unboxing this guy. It's been a long time since I've got to unbox anything. Plus the big weight and the anticipation for this figure, it's led up to this moment. Also, I'm not sure if it's going to show up on camera, but this stand I've got here is actually a Sideshow Collectibles stand, one that was made for their Jason Voorhees 6 scale figure, but because Dr Loomis does not come with a stand, I've had to quickly improvise. Also, I don't know if I've said it before, but Trick or Treat Studios done a very, very good job of packaging up this figure, and here's the face reveal. Okay, that does have an outstanding likeness to Donald Pleasence, but I'm getting slightly ahead of myself. Okay guys, so here he is, the Trick or Treat Studios 1/6 scale Dr Loomis figure as seen in Halloween. And straight out the box, my first impressions are he looks fantastic. I think that the 2 years of anticipation for this guy was certainly worth the wait, and Trick or Treat Studios have done just a knockout job with this. So, taking a quick look at the accessories he comes with, Dr Loomis comes with 2 pairs of hands in total. Firstly, the open palmed relaxed hands that are already on the figure, and then we have a left hand which is clenched into a fist, and we also have a right hand that also has a trigger finger that allows Dr Loomis to hold his trusty revolver. And speaking of which, here is that very revolver, which is the only actual accessory that Dr Loomis comes with, and we're going to talk about price points closer to the end of this review, but I'm actually not that bothered or upset that this is the only accessory Dr Loomis comes with. I mean, personally, just off the top of my head, I can't think of any other accessory that Trick or Treat Studios could have thrown in, besides something kind of generic like maybe 1/6 scale pumpkin replica from the film, or the rabbit in red matchbox for you die-hard Halloween fans out there. But out of all the possible accessories, this is the necessary one, and this is what he comes with. And I've got to say, it's a fantastic little replica of Dr Loomis's revolver, and in fact, Trick or Treat Studios have perfectly replicated the exact model of Smith & Wesson revolver that is used in the film. So it's a very screen accurate accessory. It's got some lovely little details on it, especially on the hand grip of the gun, and something that I really wasn't expecting is that the chamber for the bullets actually spins around. That was definitely not a necessary detail, but it's a very welcomed one. The only thing that I am slightly worried about is actually getting the revolver into the hand. The fingers on the hand don't really seem to have that much give in them, and I think that this is definitely a job for a hairdryer to warm up this plastic maybe a little bit to get it in there. So if you're thinking about picking this guy up, just as a reminder, don't try and force these fingers open or force the gun into the hand, because more likely than not, even if you do get it into the hand, there's a good chance that you may damage the paintwork on there, so just be careful with that. So now it's time to look at Dr Loomis himself. I guess we'll start from the bottom of the figure and work our way up. Starting with the figure's shoes, there really isn't too much to say here about them. They're overall just very basic black shoes, and I think in terms of paintwork and detail, this is probably the worst aspect of the figure. Not like it has to be something special anyway, it is just his shoes after all. I just think there could be slightly more layers to the paintwork here, maybe slightly more definition around the area with the laces perhaps. And I guess the same could be said for the socks too. But again, more likely than not, you're not even going to see his socks. So it doesn't really matter that much overall. One thing I will say about the shoes is that I do like the sculpting work done here that makes the shoes look quite worn in places, giving the shoes that kind of texture that shows wrinkles in the leather. I think that's really nice. Now coming to Dr Loomis's suit pants, overall they do look quite nice, but this is definitely the worst example of tailoring on this figure. And that's only due to the fact that I think they are quite baggy at the bottom, getting closer to the shoes. I think if the pant legs were slightly tighter near the ankle, it would definitely go a long way with this figure and really help with the overall proportions. This is one of the reasons why this is the first Trick or Treat Studios figure I've ever bought. I've seen photos of all their past 1/6 scale figures, and I'm not a massive fan of the tailoring. I have said this in previous videos, but I do feel like the 1/6 scale figures are oversized retro cloth Mego style figures, and I'm not taking a dig here by any means, because once again these figures are very affordable compared to other 1/6 scale figures. Again, we'll go over the price point near the end, but I decided to pick this guy up for a couple of reasons. One, because it's Dr Loomis and this is the first time this character has ever been made in 1/6 scale, and second of all, compared to all the other 1/6 Trick or Treat Studios figures, this one stands out as the better looking, and seeing it in person I can confirm that it is. I should also mention that Dr Loomis's trench coat does come off, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now off camera and we can get a better look at his suit. So here we have Dr Loomis without his iconic trench coat, and I've got to say that this thing was actually a lot easier to remove from the figure than I thought it would be, so that's a bit of an added bonus. But also, even without the trench coat, this figure still looks absolutely outstanding. I wouldn't even blame people for displaying the figure just like this as he appears earlier on in the film. Now I have got a few things to say about this suit. Firstly, I've seen a lot of complaints about the size of Dr Loomis's collar on his shirt. But if you check the movie again, you will see that he does have quite a large collar on that shirt. It was the 70s after all. So in my opinion, this is in fact quite film accurate. The problem I think with this is that the shirt just rides a bit too high on the figure, and I think it would definitely benefit from being slightly lower or closer to the figure's body. I mean, Loomis looks like he should be more concerned about his shirt strangling him than Michael Myers. But by no means is this inaccurate to the film, and it doesn't look bad at all. Also, I guess I'll quickly mention the tie he's wearing. If I was to compare this to Loomis's tie in the film, I would say in the film his tie is slightly wider, but my god, isn't that nitpicking. I mean, it's your basic black tie and it gets the job done just fine. Now the suit itself is once again very film accurate. It looks just as it appears in the film with these giant pockets on the side, and I also think the colouring is very nice, very accurate, and overall Trick or Treat Studios have done a wonderful job with this. But now it's time to talk about something that is definitely the most controversial aspect of this figure, and I'm talking about Dr Loomis's iconic trench coat. Although I do think that this trench coat would look better if it was slightly more beige and slightly darker in colour, the colour of this trench coat is actually not as bad or as inaccurate as people are saying it is. In fact, just looking at this trench coat in hand, I think that the colour is the last issue with the aspect of this figure. The main issue here, for me anyway, is more the material that the trench coat is made from and the collar. For starters, the collar is not so screen accurate in my opinion, but the main problem is the material that the coat is made from. I think that a different choice in material would have definitely helped sell the look of this being a trench coat, as the material that Trick or Treat Studios have gone with here is just simply too thin. In fact, in certain angles and lighting you can actually see through the coat, which obviously wouldn't happen with a trench coat as they tend to be quite thick. So I guess when it comes down to it, that is the main downside with this figure. But it definitely doesn't look as bad as people are saying it is, nor does it ruin this figure by any means. And that leads me on to my next point. The stitching work on the tailoring is very, very nice. I mean, it's clear to see here with the trench coat with the different seams going down the back and on the arms, as well as on the pockets, and the great detail with the 1/6 scale buttons that appear on the front of the trench coat and near the wrists as well. And the exact same can be said for the brown suit as well. One last note that I want to mention about this figure, and this is something that I haven't really seen many people talk about, but I guess it's just my own personal preference. I do wish that the arms were either slightly shorter or the suit jacket was slightly longer, just to cover up these ball joints connecting the hands to the arms. It's really not that big of a deal, but I do think that the suit looks slightly short, and I think by hiding those ball joints it would add to the realism of the figure. But again, that's just a nitpick, and most people will be displaying this figure with the trench coat anyway that will cover those ball joints. Now in terms of articulation, the figure does have quite a lot. The hands can swivel and are also on a hinge. The feet are attached by a ball joint. The arms can go forward, to the sides. They can also go back. Obviously all the material of the shirt and the suit will prohibit the figure from going too far, but that's not an issue. There is a bend in the elbow. The elbow is actually also on a swivel, as are the hands that are also attached by a hinge. The legs also go forward, to the sides. They don't really go that far back, but not like they'd really need to. There is also a hinge in the knee. And one other thing that I noticed is there's actually a bit of a crunch in the chest area, so that allows the figure to stand up straight but also can bend him forward. And finally, the head also seems to be on a ball joint. It can move quite far left and right, also move forward and backwards, all directions. So in terms of articulation, there is quite a lot you can do with this figure. So the last thing that I want to go over with this guy is the sculpting and the paintwork. And when it comes to the sculpt, that's where this figure really shines. Just to take another quick look at the hands, I've got to say that the sculpting on these are actually really nice. Trick or Treat Studios have put a lot of detail into these, especially with all the vein work on the back of the hand and various wrinkles and such. They're not the greatest 1/6 scale hands that I've ever seen. They obviously don't compare with some of Sideshow stuff, and I'm pretty certain they won't nearly compare to anything that Hot Toys put out there. But for this figure at this price point, they're really quite nice. And I certainly appreciate all the little details that they've put into them. And now it's time to look at the main attraction of this figure, which is of course the head sculpt. And my god, have Trick or Treat Studios blown it right out of the water with the head sculpt on this Dr Loomis figure. I mean, first things first, the likeness to Donald Pleasence is pretty much spot on. I am seriously impressed with the sculpting work that is going on here. They've practically captured the look of Donald Pleasence in this film to utter perfection. And on top of that, there's some amazing paintwork going on here as well. You can clearly see that there's different layers of paint and tones going on here to create that skin colour. And once again, the detail in the sculpting work is just fantastic. From the subtle wrinkles on the forehead to the bags under the eyes, and we also have the crow's feet, and then the tiny little details all over the head of little pigmentation in the skin, which just gives it that lifelike texture. Another thing that I feel really sells this head sculpt as Donald Pleasence is the vein work going on the side of the heads near the temples. I think that's such a great little detail that once again sells that this is Donald Pleasence in Halloween, and also adds to just the utter realism coming from this head sculpt. And finally, the paintwork going on with the hair, the mustache and the beard is also top notch as well. Within the paint, there's many different tones from lights to dark, shadows and highlights that really add realism to the sculpting work, and overall just makes the whole head sculpt come to life. And I guess the final thing that I should mention with this head sculpt is the eyes, which look great. And of course, they've got that really nice gloss finish to once again add to the realism. It's safe to say that this head sculpt has propelled a good figure into a fantastic figure. And seeing it in person, by the way, is so much different than seeing the pictures online. I can safely and honestly guarantee to you guys that this figure looks miles better in person. And I'm sure if you played around with lighting and also got a really nice diorama base for this guy, he would look outstanding. Which has made me realise I actually don't have a 6 scale Michael Myers figure yet, as I'm not a massive fan of all the official ones that have been released over the years. So now I've got this guy, I'm gonna need one of those in the future. But regardless of that, this is going to make for an amazing display piece. I seriously think that Trick or Treat Studios have knocked it out of the ballpark with this guy. So once again, I tip my hat off to you, Trick or Treat Studios. You've followed through with a fantastic figure of a really beloved horror icon. Now I own this figure, I really want to have like a diorama set with him and Michael Myers. Kind of like the old school Night He Came Home box set from NECA. In fact, I've already seen collectors online doing that with this guy. And the displays just look unreal. So if you guys watching this video aren't so sure whether you want to pick up this guy, I will say that he is absolutely worth the price point. Oh yeah, the price point. This figure retails for around £170. I'm not quite sure what that is in dollars, maybe going up to the $200 mark. And I've got to say, for a 6 scale figure, that is quite affordable. In fact, all of Trick or Treat Studios 1/6 scale figures are around that price point or even less. I think Art the Clown is like £50 cheaper than this guy. And the Art the clown figure is one that looks really good. So to say that Trick or Treat Studios are putting out these 1/6 scale figures for a very affordable price point compared to other companies, especially like Hot Toys, which we all know costs over double than this guy would cost. The product that Trick or Treat Studios have put out here is extremely impressive. If people have complaints about this figure, of course, your complaint is completely valid. But I do honestly think for the price point, some of the nitpicks, they don't really matter. But like I was talking about with Dr Loomis's shirt, I'd go as far as saying that some of those complaints are in fact false. And Trick or Treat Studios have actually come out with a very screen accurate action figure here. But not only a screen accurate action figure, one that looks pretty outstanding. Again, especially because of that head sculpt. I think it's safe to say that the 2-year wait was definitely worth it for this guy, and Trick or Treat Studios, you have not disappointed. I'm going to finish off this video with some close-up shots of this guy for you guys to enjoy. Please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of this figure. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and feelings on this. I really hope you've enjoyed today's unboxing video. It's been an absolute pleasure to do this for you guys, and until next time, take care.